A day is coming that the earth cannot stop. It doesn't arrive with human noise. It comes with God. When that day crosses the threshold, time will no longer be able to pretend. There will be a room of light where disguises don't fit, a throne where no shadow stands, and a name you won't be able to change at the last minute, yours. Today, you still have time to face it. That's why you're here, because the great and terrible day is near, and the final judgment will seal destinies, not with rumors, but with truth. Breathe. Imagine for a moment the exact silence before a trumpet that doesn't sound in your ears, but in your soul. This isn't cinema, it's a proclamation. All creation responds to a single voice. And I saw a great white throne, and the books were opened, and the dead were judged according to their deeds. Revelation 20:11-12. That text isn't for decorating walls. It's an appointment on the eternal calendar. If anyone ever told you there's still a long way to go, remember that the clock above doesn't ask permission from the one below. It's coming, and when it arrives, truth won't ask for your arguments. It will show your ways. If this certainty is already touching your conscience, write right now without ornaments. I choose God's truth. You're not doing it to look good. You're doing it to make a commitment with yourself. Keep listening. In under a minute, I'll show you why the name written in the book of life is more real than any success that seems enough today. Look at the room. There is no human marble, only clarity. A multitude enters without hierarchies. Face after face, whole stories. What the world applauded and what the world never saw. In comes the one who multiplied figures and believed the signature was everything. In comes the one who helped many, yet kept a resentment that quietly stole her peace. In comes the young man who shined on screens, but knew that alone, his word was worth less than a click. The light doesn't humiliate, it reveals, and in that revelation excuses don't hold. For every idle word, they will give account on the day of judgment. Matthew 12:36. This isn't an empty threat, it's a loving warning. Maybe you're asking if you're ready. That question is already an awakening. Throughout this message, I'll give you concrete signs to walk in truth starting today. Stay to the end. In a few moments, I'll tell you the most practical decision that opens a door pride cannot open. First, look at the scene few want to see. The trumpet doesn't summon celebrities, it summons people. And the sea gave up the dead, and they were judged according to their deeds. Revelation 20:13. Nothing hides, neither what you said in the dark, nor what you kept quiet for convenience, nor what you did thinking no one would ever know. Their comparison with others becomes useless. It won't help to say, I wasn't as bad as. Only one thing counts, whether you were true. For God will bring every deed into judgment, including every hidden thing. Ecclesiastes 12:14. Why does this matter today? Because you still have time. Because judgment is future, but grace is present. Grace doesn't haggle with truth, it cleans. When you choose truth, you don't sign a perfection contract. You open a door to a real process. That's what the proud fear, that the light will also expose what they like to call prudence, when deep down it's lukewarmness. In the moment, I'll tell you the phrase that disguises lukewarmness better than any other. Don't miss it. Imagine the first name on the list sounding, not on a loudspeaker but with weight. And before that person rises an unedited screen, the first thing that appears isn't the worst mistake, but the intention that sustained it. There are acts the world celebrated that the light dismantles because they were currency to buy applause. There are silences the world ignored that the light raises high because they were faithfulness without cameras. There, a cup of water given at the right time shines brighter than a campaign. There, a promise kept in private outweighs 1,000 speeches. If your heart is beating faster, don't be afraid. Truth does that, it awakens. Right now in the comments with simplicity, I walk with God from today. And listen. Because in 10 seconds I'll reveal the most common error that erases names from the conscience without people noticing. Here it is, the excuse of later. It isn't prudence, it's anesthesia. Later I'll call to ask for forgiveness. Later I'll return what I took. Later I'll cut off that habit. Later I'll stop playing with the line. That later erases entire days. And one day it erases destinies. The great day isn't negotiated with later, it's honored with now. It is appointed. For people to die once, and after that comes judgment. Hebrews 9:27. Let's return to the room. A man who was a judge on earth finally learns to listen without interrupting. An artist who shaped words to sell learns that his best work was the one he never wanted to publish, the truth. A woman who carried open hands but a closed heart finally looks at herself forgiving what she refused to forgive because the other didn't deserve it. In that place, human deserving stops being currency. The only thing that counts is who you truly were before God. I'm not speaking to crush you with guilt, but to lift your life with meaning. So right now, make a small and concrete decision. Choose whom you must call today to ask for forgiveness or to tell the truth. Don't post a speech. Make the call. If it helps, write it down. Today I call and make it right. Let it be evident to yourself. Listen to this next part that very few will tell you. Judgment doesn't just display what you did. It confirms what you became. Deeds aren't scattered photos. They're an album. If you wonder whether there's hope for someone tired of failing, the answer is yes. But hope doesn't excuse what's crooked. It straightens it. The river of fire was flowing, coming out. Daniel 7:10. God's fire isn't whim. It's cleansing. It burns what traps you, not who you are. Someone asks in secret, what about the book of life? That's the question. The mystery isn't in the book's leather or its ink, but in its author. There are names that remain because they chose truth when no one was watching. There are names that are whitened not because they never fell, but because they didn't lie about their fall. There are names that are erased not by a fall, but by the pride that refuses to return. Anyone not found written in the book of life was thrown into the lake of fire. Revelation 20:15. This isn't a line to scare you. It's a line you don't cross with excuses. You cross it with surrender. Maybe you say, I don't know where to start. Start with an act of truth today. Return what wasn't yours. Ask for forgiveness without over-explaining. Cut off the applause that feeds pride. Repair a broken promise. Feed someone who can't repay you. That counts as invisible here and weighs eternal there. Pay attention to a detail many overlook. Neutrality doesn't exist. Life doesn't stay on pause. You either move toward the light or drift back toward the shadow. Lukewarmness hides behind 3 words. It's not that serious. It's the favorite phrase of the self-justifying soul. Don't repeat it. Every time you say, it's not that serious about something you know is serious, you turn off a lamp. And the day you most need light, you won't find it out of habit. Don't let that happen. In the room, a mother who quietly cared for her own looks at herself, smiling with tears that don't hurt this time. A father who chose to correct without humiliating sees that his firmness with love became a weight of glory. A young man who stopped playing with screens because he knew they were pulling him toward the abyss discovers that his secret no is worth more than 1,000 shouted yeses. No one applauded them in the squares. Heaven does now. Judgment isn't a horror show. It's an act of justice. And justice also recognizes what seemed small. If up to this point you feel something in you is responding, write it. I won't go back to later. I return to now with God. Your public words place you internally. They're not an amulet. They're a commitment. There's a subject I cannot omit, the end of the old jailers. Death and Hades were thrown into the lake of fire. Revelation 20:14. The last enemy falls. The pain accumulated for centuries won't have the last word. On that day, there will be no hospital rooms where hope hangs by a thread. There will be no goodbyes left unfinished. The sentence doesn't end in darkness. It opens to promise. I saw a new heaven and a new earth. Revelation 21:1. This isn't fantasy to console. It's the restoration that puts everything in its place. God will wipe away every tear. Revelation 21:4. But today you're not there. You're here. And here is where you choose. Don't promise epic feats. Promise truth. Everyday truth defeats spectacular lies. Cold return, put things in order. Cut off what enslaves, embrace, support, learn to say no when the environment pushes you to the edge. The edge is more dangerous than the abyss because it seems controllable. No one falls all at once. They fall step by step when they get used to seeing how close they can stand without crossing the line. Don't live on the edge. Live in the center of the path. Let me give you a simple image that sticks to your soul. You enter a room, and in the middle there's a table with a lamp. The lamp turns on, and you see dust on your hands, stains on your clothes. The first reaction is to turn it off. But the lamp didn't make anything dirty. It only showed what was already there. That's how truth is. Don't turn it off because it reveals. Use it to clean. Whoever turns off the lamp walks blind and crashes harder later. Whoever leaves it on learns to see and to walk without tripping over the same things. By now you might be asking if this is too harsh. It is on lies, not on you. God doesn't crush the one who surrenders. He lifts. God doesn't humiliate the one who confesses. He cleanses. That's why I propose 4 acts that become habits and change destinies. 1. Acknowledge. Out loud so your pride hears you. 2. Repair. Don't publish speeches. Do what you must. 3. Choose well when no one is watching. Not to earn points, but because you stand before God. 4. Feed on the living word, not on snippets that only tickle the ear. Go back to Revelation 20:11-15. Go back to Ecclesiastes 12:14. Go back to Matthew 12:36. Go back to Hebrews 9:27. Go back to Daniel 7:10. Go back to Joel 2:31. Not to collect quotes, but to remember that life has a north. Maybe you think this message exposes you too much. It isn't exposure. It's care. Few things are as loving as a timely warning. The day is approaching. Not necessarily tomorrow, but surely. Don't take this as pressure. Take it as direction. If you choose truth today, when the hour comes, you won't have to improvise. Your life will speak for you. And now engrave this line for when doubt tries to bargain. Judgment isn't won with clever answers. It is passed through with an honest biography. You don't need to invent one. You need to build it starting today. How do you begin? With a brief prayer and a concrete action. The prayer, God, straighten my path. The action, take the first moral debt and pay it within the next 24 hours. That small obedience knocks down entire structures of self-indulgence. For those who say, I already know this, here's a warning. Knowing doesn't transform. Obeying does. Knowledge can become a shield of pride. Obedience breaks that shield. Don't seek to know more so you can obey less. Learn to obey what you already know. That's the beginning of all freedom. If this message feels too direct to share, that's exactly why you should share it. What unsettles pride rescues the heart. Send it to one person with a single line. Watch it all the way through. It's for us, today. Don't try to win the argument. Open the door. Truth takes care of the rest. Before we close, place in your own hands a key you need. Say your name quietly. Understand it isn't a social label or a profile. It's a real person, with a story, with wounds, with decisions. That name is going to sound in the room. And when it sounds, let them not find a character but a person. A person who chose truth even when it cost them. A person who didn't trade the center to flirt with the edge. A person who didn't sell their conscience for plastic applause. A person who learned to ask for forgiveness and to forgive. That is true success. Everything else is noise. If you've listened this far, say clearly and without shame, I am awake before the great day. Write it. Not for mystique, but for commitment. By writing it, you declare yourself alert. And share this message with 3 people today, a family member, a friend, someone you barely know. Don't draft speeches. Send truth in brief. If you're not yet part of this house, subscribe and hit the bell. Here we speak, without sugarcoating, about what defines eternity, not to scare, but to live with purpose. We won't give you magic formulas here. We'll walk with you in truth. Leave in the comments, without proper names, the practical decision you're going to take in the next 24 hours. That decision isn't measured by likes. It's measured by obedience. And as you turn off the screen, remember this final image. a room without cracks, a throne without ornament, a light without cruelty, and your name. May it be that when the books are opened, they find a story written with steps of truth. May it be that when the verdict speaks, fear has no place, because you didn't negotiate with lukewarmness. May it be that when the terrible day is near is more than text on a thumbnail and becomes conscience within you, you are at last at peace. Because the final judgment doesn't catch off guard the one who lived awake. To that one truth embraces,